Can't do lifting.
No, I can't. But why is it? Oh, and then-
Thinking about it.
So, but I want this to be big. How do I make this a little screen?
Highlight it maybe? I'll highlight with mouse and click it. Click on it. Right. Take it. Just go with it. You can do it.
You're good. You don't have to do anything.
Hey, Deanne,
Yeah,
how do I make the screen full?
you don't. Because people have joined. So like if I turn my camera on, you can see me. But because we have our cameras off, you just, they see the,
Okay.
that's just what it's showing us. I mean. So like here, I see, this is what I see.
Okay.
So I've got the
All right.
ring.
And get enough of us in person, then you have to watch this on screen and in person.
Double down.
You can share.
Opening times for the meeting, 7 o'clock and 26. First order of business. These meeting minutes from our Tuesday 12th meeting. So moved. Second. Also. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes?
These are the ones that you emailed?
Yes. Some decent information. Yes. Yep, I want no rush. Which ones are we approving? It's the April 12th.
Second.
I think we have a second, so like more of a discussion. Jack, do you have any issue with the meeting minutes from the 12th?
No issue.
Next order of business, you guys. What was that? We got to vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Done. Vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. All right, next order of business, you want to get them today? Or we should get dinner on the beach? Yeah, do you have some information on the beach?
Yeah, I mean. If you want us to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Come on up and have a seat. and-
I have like a presentation I can put up. Page one negative. I was just gonna put one big one. On the screen.
Presentation. I mean, to some degree, I've seen the top graphical page. Yeah, we've seen some diagram and stuff. I think the guys. You know, some pricing, things like.
So this was just a quick couple pictures of what's been going on there. So you can see it's basically like anytime it rained down there, it's basically flash flood. So this in the bottom, you can see this is the work that Alan was able to do for us. So it's new curbing. So that was kind of the first phase. That was the first 10,000. To just stop the thing from falling apart.
Has it been, I haven't been by there in a while. Has it been paved along the edge there or?
No, so that area is still open and that's part of what we're gonna fill in. This has been paved. You can kind of see it here.
Oh,
They repaved the short piece of Taft Ave because they re-sloped it and there's a raised crosswalk there.
That's concrete holding the city is next. Oh, okay. Right? Oh, and then it's finished.
Yeah.
Left of it.
Okay.
Okay. I get it.
I have gone down a few times now and it's night and day. It's just huge.
So that flooding has been fixed.
Right,
That's for the most part.
Yeah.
But the damage is
right.
is done
That's-
with erosion and other issues.
So this is just kind of an overview of the project. So ideally, funding will get approved in May. We would then prepare an RFP to go out to bid for the base of this project. Some of this we can do while we're open. Some work on the sidewalk.
You're saying the funding approved, that's a separate article.
So this request, we're asking for $300,000. We would then award contracts in July, and the idea would, the work would start basically August 30th, as soon as we close. One of our challenges is we're open in the summer, so we have to kind of do this around, so we don't lose the whole season.
Right.
But we're hoping the majority of the big work can get done in the summer and the fall, and then that leaves the spring just for the final landscaping. June 23.
People looking to stabilize it too.
Yeah, I mean, I basically I think most of the site work should be done, retaining walls, all the trees. Honestly, even initial loam and seed, it just probably won't grow very well. They come back in the spring and really do the work, so. We'd like to replace the playground. There's a photograph of what's there now, which is kind of not much. There was a swing set that got taken down to make room for tree work. So it's gonna be a new 50-50 playground area, 4 to 6 slides, some sort of a 4 to 6 swings, some sort of a slide. We're still working with the playground company on the specifics. They wanted to see these plans done before they start doing all the drawings.
What do you have budgeted for them?
So we set 25,000 for this portion. I spoke to the gentleman a few times. It sounds like 15 to 20,000 will get us the swings and 1 or 2 small items. Probably a couple $1,000 will have to be mulch. I wanted to port in place rubber surface, but because we're within the buffer zone, we have to do a whole underground detention thing.
And it's possibly turf out. Yeah.
Yeah, if we can do something nicer, but at least the mulch is the baseline. Yeah, apparently if this is an ocean, that'd be totally fine because it's a lake. It's very bizarre.
And putting water.
What I learned. So this is the side of Taft Ave, I guess, going to that access ramp. So we're gonna fill this in with a sidewalk, so now it'll be a little safer for people to go over there and also clean up this giant mess that's left with the curbing. The major thing that delayed us was ADA compliant redesign and entrance. So the current entrance doesn't meet the proper slopes, it's too steep. We're also going to have a few pathways that have some better pictures on the next slide. So the entrance is going to basically be a small staircase and then a ramp. Here's the overview of the plans. They spec'd out pavers. They can be paved inner pavers, and if we're hoping to do something nicer, just asphalt. And then further down, so this is the beach house at the bottom. So this way you can come in the entrance, you get down here on the basketball court or down here at least to the grass area. It's just a major improvement from what's there now. These are also spec'd as pavers. Again, look a little bit nicer than the broken concrete and asphalt kind of mess that's there now. This upper area is going to get cleaned up. Some sort of a small retaining wall along this, where this bench is shown here. You can see this is just looks like crap now. The fencing is the other major portion. The fence is also a disaster. So we're looking at replacing the front entirely. Down the side over here where the path is, this is all cleaned up now. This is an old picture. We're going to replace the fabric, but leave the posts. They seem to be in good condition. And on the other side, we're doing nothing because it's going to be hidden by a privacy screen that's on bushes. But we replace this gate with a sliding gate to accommodate ADA. There'll be a new gate down here to get machines in if we need to. We're going to repurpose this gate, so we're not saving a little bit of money. We're struggling getting quotes on this. I spoke with one company, they've not responded. We have 2 more coming out on Thursday. Again, they budgeted 20, I think I put 25 for this based on past projects at the park. They just did the softball fence, 6,000 or 7,000. Unfortunately, this is an area where I think COVID has really driven prices way up.
And Dan, this is
Yeah.
Jeff. Quick question. The fencing that you have here, is a chain link required to be erected, or are we electing to go with chain link as opposed to, say, PVC, white picket, something like that?
So it's funny you say that because CPA brought up the same question. I think we're going to ask the fencing company for some options. The initial thought was to do like a black vinyl coated chain link, something a little bit nicer. Get rid of all the barbed wire mounts and all that junk. But it sounds like there's a pretty strong desire to do something a little more visually appealing here.
Then they asked if we could get rid of the fence, but it's a security issue plus people would use the beach and trash it.
I think some sort of like a wrought iron or like the aluminum fake ornament look a little better. So it doesn't look like the prison. Nice.
On the previous slide, when you talk about the retaining wall, how much do you have budgeted for that part of the project?
So that is part of all the landscaping that it's on the last slide, the number, I believe I 210. So the major thing is these retaining walls. You can see they're all out of alignment. They're being pushed. Some of this is from the water, from the trees. These are original to the property. I think they were there in the bottom 60s. So all new modular retaining walls, new stairs, railings. There's a lot of safety issues with that. New concrete modular units. And then loam seed, some new trees, basically clean the place up, because it's just totally been washed out, and the roots have come up. And then the last phase is just some site furnishings, new picnic tables, hopefully a new dock if the funds allow. We need security cameras down there. We're gonna clean up, this is the other side of the front, this will get turned into like a bike area. And then so this is the current budget we're working with. We've got one price, kind of an estimate on the landscape work that came in at $164,000. Didn't include the sidewalk, any of the ADA stuff, because it was before this. Fortunately, that's going to be the big portion of this project. But we're budgeting, so 210 for the landscaping, 25 for fencing, 25 for playground, 15 for site furnishings, and then $25,000 contingency. We should cover what we're trying to do here. So we looked into, I don't know if this came up for this board, we looked into getting a grant. Unfortunately, timing is would set us way back. Next opportunity would be November. We can't do any work until we have a contract, so we wouldn't be able to touch this until the spring. So the commission felt it would be better to save these type of grants for future projects. We're looking at lights in the fields, possibly a second basketball court, possibly new fields. You know, I think that seems to be a healthy amount of funding in the CPA. And really, Tom touched on this, but the reasoning behind this is to try and drive more traffic to the beach, generate more revenue. Pre-COVID, we were almost breaking even, which means the income from admissions and lessons balanced the lifeguards. And after COVID, that went right out the door. So we're still trying to come back. The lessons program we're trying to get this year. But we've basically done nothing here. I mean, we've done the roof, we've done some work on the septic and maintenance stuff that the town bought in the 60s and just kind of kept it going. So the goal is to really kind of refresh the beach and bring to life and hopefully generate some more traffic.
On that paver slide that showed the ramp, where was your snack shack?
Let me here, I can pull up the plans. Too. I didn't get credit finally. It's
I saw it coming like it says the road, like reversing the way going down. Is that the dog runs were?
That, those are the plans, and then let me.
It gives you one.
Well, because it. Yeah, so this is the snack shack up in this area.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of a weird layout. I mean, you know, in the ideal world, you could probably do things a little differently.
Dan, do you mind if I ask Chief for some input? I think it's a great project. Dan Ward has done a great job of trying to do something with barely nothing. Chief, have you taken a look at this? Is this, do you have any input on it? But again, for the future safety of the building, people are there.
So Dan and I had talked about the overall project, back when we were talking about getting that access for drafting out of the lake alongside the northern part of the beach. But the buildings I have not.
Yeah, we should probably forward these final plans to you for sure. That's a good point. It's gonna touch conservation.
We're not changing the buildings or the type of work we're doing in the buildings or with the buildings. It's this is the grounds around it.
Right, and any changes or anything to the building would really be under the building official. The fire code is really for maintenance of existing stuff. Anything new would be in the building.
I will, so that if you don't know, the fire did a major project. That access path has been totally cleaned up. All the highways, so now they can get in there and draft and wait. But it also cleared that up for use for the public. They're sitting in the basketball court. We had an Eagle Scout build 2 kayak racks. So those will be out, and we're gonna red space on them. See how that goes. And then the other project, which at some point we're gonna look into next, is gonna be bathrooms. But we need to focus on the site right now. And then the bathrooms can be a later phase. Hopefully, we might be able to get a septic across the field in the park. Which would honestly pay for itself instead of pumping 2 tight tanks. But it's a whole other project to figure that out.
On your RPC for the 210, you had a 210? For the landscape?
Yeah.
Is that something you write out of the one RPC or does that get broken up in divisions of construction?
So I guess my vision was to, so the entire landscape would be one project, all the site work, all the retaining walls, the paving, the walkways. The idea would be to put that all into one package, have essentially the landscape company will serve as the general contractor, they'll ensure all that's done. The fencing will probably just do as a separate RFP. And then the smaller things like cameras, playground. But I think that the major site work would be one. We look to hire one company.
It's all simple.
Right. Yeah, so that it's all tied in, all the footing and all that. Right. And that was the engineer actually had concerns with pavers about it would have to be done, so they say. Don't, otherwise they're not accessible.
That's still makes them too down the road.
He's got it right.
Your presentation.
Dan, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So, refresh my memory, because it's been a while since the kids been down to the beach. Since my kids are 27, 25. Can you tell me a little bit about like, what's the public access to the space? Like, how can the general men residents use the space?
So the town beach has always been treated as a closed facility. It's open in the summer. It's only open when we're staffed. Unlike other places where it's basically free for all, sometimes there's guards on duty. Next to the lake, that path,
Right.
that's considered the public access. This lake is what's called a great pond, so by law, you're allowed to be in the water anywhere you want, as long as you're below, I think it's the high tide line or something like that. So that path is the way where someone can bring a boat in, go fishing, that sort of thing.
But the facility that we're talking about here is not open to the Mendon residents without an entrance.
Correct. We're open June through August. It was $2 and $3. I think it's going up to $3 and $5. Yeah, again, we haven't raised our prices in many years.
So, I see Ann's on the line. Maybe I'll just ask her a question as part of the using CPA money for something that maybe not all the residents in the town can access. Is there any precedent around that?
I don't think so. I mean, we didn't really look into that. I mean, CPA funds can be used for recreational facilities. But I don't think that that's an issue in terms of having to pay to get in.
I do know it came up with the grant, and one of the terms of the grant was you cannot charge more for non-residents than residents, the state grant. And their threshold was double. So I awarded 3 and 5. There are some things.
They talked about kind of increased
Yeah.
revenues. Is there like, you guys kind of modeled what that could possibly look like? From your standpoint.
Well, I can tell you, let's see if this will cooperate. I mean, so right now, the way it works, it's kind of, the whole thing is a very odd setup. So the revenue from admissions and swim lessons goes to the general fund. And the lifeguards are paid out of the general fund. So that and everything else comes out of a revolving fund in terms of the rec program. We were pretty much breaking even. I just want to pull up the actual numbers. Pre-COVID, we had it down within $1,000. As of It's fiscal year 18, it cost the town $814 effectively to run the beach. You know, obviously there's incidental costs and all that, but like now we're up, it's almost 8 grand, I think, because we lost some lessons.
We had discussions about a 30 to 50% increase after the renovations were done. We advertised with the beach offers a little more. We've really been hesitant to do that because we're proud of the beach right now. Right. We want to make it another jewel of Mendon, if you will, and attract the folks.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem is it's really kind of a dump for lack of a better term. And I think people aren't going there right now, especially with little kids. And it's not really, other than the water, there's not much attracting them.
And the plan would be for the revolving fund to continue the maintenance on it once it's done, so that it doesn't go into disrepair again.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange, so the town pays to pump the tight tank. The general fund pays the electric bill, and there's a couple of different lines, a couple $1,000 here and there for supplies. And then the shack is in the revolving fund, and generally turns a small profit. The camp is, basically the camp earns a big profit, and that money gets dumped into facilities. So the roof was funded out of the revolving fund. I believe the town meeting paid for the tight tank when that happened. We redid the floors in the bathroom, in the shack.
Try to maintain things over the years, bringing in more sand and everything else, but really it's just gets washed into the lake. So trying to prevent that from happening. This type of work.
Is there anything that was left out, like ideally something else that you would want to add to help attract more people to the site? I think the playground would be is a good addition. You know, I know my kids love using the playground up the hill. But if they had a chance to use a better playground close to the water, they'd be more likely to use the beach. So I don't know if there was things that were left out of the project.
I think Dan mentioned earlier about the buildings. We do some improvements, but they're so old. I think you need to get engineering in there to see what they actually do. Have additions, or we'd have to have them thoroughly inspected. That's another whole project, I think, in the future. But we really want to get the grounds looking good. If buildings are functional for what they do right now for us, bathrooms are functional. So that would be the next phase or final phase, if you will, of this. As Dan mentioned earlier, Alan stepped up in the highway department to help us out and tapped out. That prevented some of the major water coming down from the field and parking lot. This phase is the grounds now that I'm not going to get the swath of water every time it rains. Wash everything down. That's protected. We feel whatever we invest in now, the grounds will stay there, and we can easily maintain it. With the crews we have, with the funds we get, the revolving fund, and then that final phase of the inspecting the building, see what can possibly do with them as far as renovations go. Looking at the sewer project, Dan had mentioned as well, and getting off the tight tank into a leaching field. So that will probably be all in one package in the future. I'm not sure if that's CPA fundable or not, but that's another discussion. We want to look into buildings and certain services where they are. But I think we make it a nice picturesque beach, some playground areas, grass areas, sand areas, picnic areas, things like that. Easily accessible. I think that's our goal right now.
And Tom, this is a real rough sketch from the playground. Unfortunately, one of the challenges is all the new rules. So this is what's called a fall zone. So this was, I think he modeled this on 40 by 50, and there's not a lot of room for a whole lot. We're going to try and get, I think, 6 swings, then some sort of small climbing apparatus, hopefully some sort of toddler swing. That's definitely, I think definitely we're going to fit as much as we can. So the only other major thing to me is the bathrooms, but I think that's a big enough project that needs to be on its own. We need to do some current testing. Fortunately, there's some technical things with the public water supply. Challenging. I think some of the, like the site furnishings, I will say, and I think that's why we included them, like the dock, the far dock, and if you've been in the lake that recently. The far dock is disintegrating, that needs to get replaced. The picnic tables are great, but they're very heavy, so then we're gonna move the park. Something a little bit more movable down at the beach so they can be arranged for concerts.
Was it in the lake weed situation?
So we don't have that much issue with the weeds. I think they tend to accumulate in the, like the coves off, Old Tap in that area. They do treatments and they actually, so conservation, thanks to a settlement, they did a massive, like initial baseline study in the lake. We get this whole giant report and it's better than we thought. The lake is in decent shape. I think it sounds like one of the big challenges, it's so small. There's shallow areas that stop stuff from flowing as well as it could. You know, we do have challenges with the E. coli levels. We need to keep working with the Board of Health to get everybody on the lake in tight tanks. But again, it seems like the issues we're having, as much as we'd like to blame it, they're not septic. It's just a very small lake, not a lot of flow.
Yeah, the study mentioned the stormwater.
Yeah.
And this little project that happened. Think of parking lot, and the fields, the basketball court, and everything was all just rushing right through the beach into the lake. And that's when we have issues after a big storm. That's when the coli levels go up. And I guess it exists in regular storm drains. And I always thought it came from septic systems, but it doesn't come from any kind of anything that's decomposing. I guess so leaves, grass, whatever.
If I remember, I'll email it. It's on our website. It's like a 50-page report I put out. And I think we do need to invest in some ongoing monitoring, I think. And that's another project. I've talked to Ann a little bit about that. That's another day.
What do you mean monitoring?
Testing of it. So, I mean, the E. coli is the state mandated weekly test for E. coli. Lake Network Association was testing for all sorts of nutrients and nitrates and all that, but it's very expensive and it's a lot of work. I think that's something we can get into more. Now that we have this baseline, we have the data to know if things are changing.
Any other questions? Yes.
I guess, so in general, the idea of revitalizing the beach seems great, right? I'd love for it to be something we're proud of and other residents would too. The amount of money coming out of CPA versus what, I guess, the balance sheet of CPA funds. I don't have a good grasp on what this means for.
There's a good amount in the CPA funds. There's like over 3 million, so there's definitely enough money to do this project.
And I'm just back to the question around kind of using CPA money for this. Is this something that town council should at least kind of weigh in on, or do you not think that that's an issue at all?
I don't think it's an issue, but we can ask town council just to be careful if you want. I've been looking at the website and I don't see anything that says that is a restriction. Because I imagine in other situations, they use the money to maintain the open space or recreational facility and, I think it's okay, but we can check on it.
I just know that in the past, there's been kind of a fair amount of sometimes comments around when things come up with the lake and the town spending money on it and the lack of access has been. So that may be a good question to make sure that we have an answer before.
Well,
Free access, right? It's not they don't have access, it's lack of free access.
Yeah, there's limited access for the public.
Yeah,
Would there be something that we could look into with low income families? then we'd be happy to invest in it.
We do offer financial assistance for the rec program. We offer it for the rec program and swim lessons. But this has come up, and I think related to weed treatment too. Hopefully this access path and the kayak racks is a good step in that direction. Because I do think sometimes that people don't realize what they can't use or think it's private.
I think that would be useful to kind of highlight for the residents. A lot.
Yeah, I've used the access path for the kayaks a couple of times when I first moved here, and I was like, am I on somebody's property? Like, is this what we're supposed to do?
That was a thing.
Yeah, maybe even a sign that just says, public access for water.
There is signage coming.
If you look at it, it's not like we're.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it in the last 6 months,
It's like in a machete.
you could drive down.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
they-
that's a big difference.
Totally. So we had an Eagle Scout clean it. And then we didn't realize how much land we had. So that's just looking at something, so I told me, we can get a fire truck in here. So it's all been ripped out, asphalt millings, there's big boulders at the end, so you can't like drive, there's no public boat launch, you can't put your jet ski in the way. But you can drive in, unload, go right down to the water, it's all totally cleaned up.
Oh, so I could back in with the truck with the.
Oh, yeah.
kayaks in the truck. Oh, that's nice.
And that's part of the work, signage to, so people don't park there.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a major, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, according to the last document that we supplied, it's Article 25, I believe dealing with this to see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money from its community preservation accounts to fund the renovations at the Mendon Town Beach. So, yes. And this could be an old sheet. Money figure. 180.
Yes.
Is that, when did the 300,000, I know you talked about 180 maybe going to 2 or 2.
So we were really hoping, and then we spoke with the local landscaper who gave us the one estimate, and that one estimate for just part of the project, 164. And then we went, okay, we're way off.
We also had discussions with the CPA committee.
Right.
Heard what they had to say about what they like to. Each look like and how their input. And that's when we got decided. They're landscaping caters instead of concrete.
Sure.
So, and that's great, that's how it.
I guess what I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, we have the open budget here. On, I correct?
Yes. I want to make sure you get this update.
We should have correct numbers supplied to us. I would have thought we would have received them before tonight.
That's at least it's some.
Chief likes that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll tell you, I got to give Alan Tatro and the highway department credit for clearing that all out. That's a.
Is that catch? That's a
Great.
great.
No, it's not. I just didn't get a chance to see it.
Well, I think it's a great project. I think Dan and the rest of the board is doing a great job. As a citizen of the town, I appreciate it.
That's. Just by way of explanation too, in case anybody can see the Uxbridge on that truck. That's part of automatic aid for us. Uxbridge will always go to that site to fill tankers. We call them, that's why we had them in there testing them.
So we're getting this budget changed to 3.
Yeah, and then the ADA stuff is new too. That was the other part of it. Parks. We basically sat down and said, wait a minute, we're spending this kind of money. We need to do it all and not just leave this major part out of it.
I had 300 on mine. That was just few months ago. At 650. Everybody good?
John?
In other words, I have the updated one that Ann sent, looked like to all of us. 658 tonight. That's what I've been looking at. That's why I was.
Yeah, and so I haven't talked to Ann, but you're correct. The number changed.
That would change it. But this one looks. This is.
We're not even close.
You got an updated? I got an update at 658 tonight. That's when I was sitting here, we were going.
Ann sent you all. CPA.
It's all the CPA. Thing is, Ann sent you the updated CPA.
Yeah, we should all have,
Not the total one.
no. Just the office of the writers.
What I'm saying is, right, what I'm saying is we should have an updated warrant before tomorrow night, so we can look at it. Tomorrow night's the open budget.
Yeah, this 8 is in total.
So Article 26 is now 7,007.
Okay, yeah, I think so. She's got it in, so she's not. That's pretty much CPA.
Can I talk?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I was just gonna say, sorry for getting the numbers late. We just had a hard time getting the estimates back from people. But tomorrow night, we should have everything, so. That's all I wanted to say. And then on next Tuesday, the Community Preservation Committee will be voting on these motions.
So which one of these have changed based off of current warrant expectations? I'm jumping back and forth, so.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, sorry, the sound keeps on going on and off, so I, can't go here, but I think you asked what ones have changed. Article 27 changed. We reduced the amount to $15,250.
What was it again? 15 what?
$15,250.
So do we need to go through the article line by line again? Because we can go through the article line by line and get to CPA. We can reference Ann's email. She has all of them. Yeah. 2 through. I think that's 29, but
It was 8 is in total.
For the CPA. It's a big warrant. But the point I'm trying to make is we should have an updated warrant before tomorrow night.
Yeah. I know. They should
You know, it's great that Ann took care of her, but
Yeah, we can't show that in others.
exactly.
Yeah. What do you recommend doing? Because I don't want to waste any member's time.
Well, we have to meet it tomorrow night, we're gonna have to go through it.
Just do it. Less is a hearing and more is a meeting.
The open budget here is gonna be, for lack of a better term, like a dress rehearsal of the town meeting. We're gonna go through each warrant article and each line item, Article 3. So Article 3 is the town budget. Oh, sorry.
But since we can't be guaranteed to know that the amounts that are listed here on the latest spreadsheet are correct across the board, it feels like tomorrow we should be voting whether we recommend the town approve it. And then you do the dress rehearsal part of voting on the article, I guess.
Like I said, it's not our meeting. We'll select.
Okay.
So it's not how we did it for 30 years.
If the board of selectmen meeting, sorry, the select board meeting goes until 1 AM because this is what we have to do to conversion, I don't care.
Oh, no,
I couldn't care less if the select board meeting has to go till 1 AM.
So let's move forward here. Does anybody have any other questions? Dan?
You guys here?
No, I can go, I can be there. These gentlemen have done a great job. And I appreciate it.
Dan, if you could, just for reference sake, could you keep us abreast of any other quotes you get and see the finance committee on any quotes? It would just be helpful. for us to
Yes.
Keep tabs on the project as it progresses so that we know the developments go. Especially if you're running into shortcomings or whatever, it'd just be good for us to chart it. Keep us in the loop.
Yeah, I think
Just an update email once a month or whatever, that would be very helpful.
we should, hopefully we'll get some of that from fence companies. Shortly. That's the key one. Now these plans.
I'm sure. Not sure if it was Mike. Somebody had mentioned working on trying to get the fencing layout for campus done with that. I don't know if that's something you work with Kim on or if that's even a thing. I don't even know.
Fencing, well, so then,
They have a $30,000 line for fencing here. So
yeah, I
don't
can
know if that's
ask,
something you
that's
can-
probably, it's the chief, I think, is handling it, because he's
Maybe.
been fencing this, I'll have to ask him who he's been talking to.
Yeah, I mean, it was brought up, I think it was Nick brought it up, yeah, but it's something worth kicking around. It saves a buck, it saves a buck.
Yeah, I'll reach
At
out,
least it's a callback.
yeah.
Yeah, right, it'll put some more pressure on, whichever you want to call it, but it might give you more.
Well, they can order the materials, because I know that's what they struggled with softball fence.
Sure.
Because of COVID, just trying to get them to stop. So I'll have to talk to the chief and find out what his plan is. That's good.
That's all I know. Jack, you have any other questions?
All set, thank you.
No, I think that's great. I just wanted to see what it was. I just wanted, I don't know if it-
They'll have we'll have at some point, we're gonna go have a whole hearing notice of intent. We'll just,
Yeah, Concom. Right.
yeah, we're just finalizing. And you do copy if you want them.
Thanks, guys. So I know last meeting, there was a few questions, Nick, you know, I think had a few about, the brush truck. I don't know if you're the chief here, remember that this year.
Thank you. So I did take the opportunity to watch last meeting. I heard some of the questions come out, so I wanted to just get back to the community and deal with everything. And, so our vegetation fires, that's what the reported. They run about 25% of our total fire incidents. Actually, the numbers do depend on the type of year. Well, last year was a relatively wet year. Say, we had nothing that previous year, 2020, which was a pretty dry year, we had 19 fires, actual vegetation.
Were they due to brush burning out of control during brush heat?
There was some of that, but there was also, down in the woods off of, Fair Road, the four-wheelers. And it may have been the same thing off of Blackstone Street as well. And they're a little bit deeper in the woods. There are some trails in there which,
Yeah.
because this vehicle we're proposing would be a four-wheel drive, it would allow us to get in there. But yeah, when you start getting really dry weather like that, the four-wheelers, not that they intend to do this, but they throw a spark. And in the middle woods, nobody sees it.
Hot muffler.
Right, right. So until the men in fire tower, as long as the state staff. Nobody sees smoke. It's a fairly decent size. The vehicle will be garaged. The current vehicle is garaged. This is vehicle as well. There's only two vehicles that we leave outside simply because we're not spacing and operational wise, they're blocking the trucks. It's the pickup truck that we use for plowing and for shuttling equipment. And it's the old police cruiser that we have, the inspector. Just to go out and do inspection. So those are the old ones, the larger apparatuses all inside. On this brush truck, what really worries me is as we start to get into our particularly we're going to get into more
variations of product. Potentially some very dry conditions. It's great to have all the open space that Mendon has. But I'll tell you, the fire chief, it worries me that if something gets going on a breezy day. And it was to the point where on into here, I had asked if there was a way we could use the municipal vulnerability program grants in there to cut fire roads.
I was actually gonna ask you, just like, I've walked plenty of trails and then talking about the truck, a lot of those trails. Nobody skidded those roads in 30, 40 years. So
Right.
they're getting tight.
Right, now I was told that the MVP program does, that is outside the scope of that program. Talked to a couple of my guys do the geocaching and stuff like that, so try and get all of those trails. People hide things with ordinance or something like that. and they can use your
All right, I
GPS.
haven't heard of that. You just said it so quick and I'm so out of my context. I'm like, it's like, Pokemon.
But anyways, we're gonna try and map out all those trails, and I asked them while they're doing that, to try and identify the trails that we may be able to get a vehicle down and concentrate on trying to keep clear. And it's not so much that we hope a fire's along that road, but it's that fire break, and it allows us, in the event that we have a larger fire, to stage equipment there as the fire's help mitigate. Should we have some?
So Chief, I know you've done a great job in kind of updating the town's fire equipment, both for the personnel and for response. What's the roadmap? What additional items might you be coming here for in the future?
So this should be, at least while I'm here, the last large vehicle, not the last vehicle purchase that we're gonna come and look for funding for until this vehicle needs to be replaced. With the help of the town administrator, what we did when we replaced the ambulance was we did that with a 7-year lease. And so every 7 years, the intent is to replace that ambulance. That expense is built into the fire department budget. When we did the engine replacement, we did that on an 8-year lease. Because NFPA says after 25 years, an engine is not considered to be in service, or you don't get credit for it. We had 2 engines and a tanker. So on an 8-year cycle, it's every 24 years they'll be replaced. And it actually lines up pretty good with the age of the trucks as well. The engine, either 2001 or 2003. The rest of it is, but, and then the tanker is a 2012. So the next truck up will be the engine. 6.5 years, and then 8 years after that will be the tanker. We do have a rescue vehicle. That was at one point what's called a Type 5 ambulance, where it could in extreme conditions be used to transport. But in order for it to be designated as such, it has to be equipped as an ambulance. It's expensive to keep things up to date, keep replacing medications and all that. So we no longer use it as a Type 5. And rarely really was it used. I don't think it was ever used to transport. It also has an onboard air compressor where you refill our air bottles. The fire services moved from what were called 2.2 bottles, which gave us about 20 minutes of air, to 4.5. So they hold 4,500 cubic inches of air. And they last in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 minutes, just depending on the work you're doing. So the need for on-scene air supply isn't as great as it was 20 to 30 years ago. We also, within our fire district, there is an air and light truck that comes out of Leicester that the district. We can request that. It's here in half hour, 45 minutes. It's also on that truck our extrication equipment, which is used by the equipment on there is hydraulic fluid equipment tethered by a hose to that pump. Again, with technology coming out, especially battery technology, we purchase tools with some year-end money 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that are battery operated. They are carried on the new engine. So instead of taking up 2 or 3 compartments for that extrication, they're literally on a shelf in one. So the need for that rescue tractor is really minimized with some of the changes that these industry has made as well. So I don't see that vehicle being replaced. Right now, we use it primarily as a people mover. We do use that to respond to second ambulance calls when an outside ambulance is coming in, just so it gets used, it doesn't sit there. But yeah, and at some point, it may just be, you know what, we've got everything squared away enough, let's just sell it.
And do you imagine this is gonna be a lease like the others, purchase, or?
Honestly, my preference is that it's paid for out of the capital stabilization, just paid for a couple of reasons. One, selfishly with the supply chain issues, I don't know when we're gonna be able to get a chassis. And then once we get the chassis, when the manufacturer who puts the body on is going to be able to get the material to do that. So timing wise, but as I said a little bit ago, we built the expense into the fire department operating budget to do all the other vehicles. I think it's, in opinion, a disservice to the town to take $20,000 or $30,000 out of the operating expense budget just for the next 5 to 6 years, and have that come back. I know the operating budget's tight. If the money is there in capital stabilization, that would just be my preference.
And my last question, and the question around timing. If it were to get approved, like what do you think the timing was for that to be online?
And that's why I really think it's imperative that this gets approved now. There was one chassis in the area back in January when I first said, we really got to get going on this, because normally it'd be about a year turnaround. That chassis, obviously, I couldn't reserve it because I didn't have authorization. It's gone. Suppliers that we've talked with have said Ford, Dodge, and GM has stopped taking truck orders last November. So they didn't give me a quote. They gave me an estimate, and they said, when you place the order, when you tell us we can place the order, and when we place the order, we can then tell you what that price is going to be. It could be 2.5 years before we will see that truck coming. But again, I can't place that order and get that ball rolling until the funding is there. We will search. I mean, once the funding's there, we'll start doing everything we can. The manufacturer of the body is from Canada. They have, it's my understanding that the brother of the person who does manufacturing has a dealership, Buffalo. So that may be a way. We'll do what we can to get the chassis.
That's a what, F550 diesel.
It's an F550 that has an upgrade to it for sort of take an additional couple thousand pounds. Because we do want to have a 500-gallon water tank. Give us and we'll wait for a tank. And the nicety of that is, so this truck, before I left Uxbridge, we were looking to replace the forestry there as well. And the officers there worked on designing this truck. And we're going to take that design, if that's what we're looking to get, modifying a few things for the stuff, the experience that Uxbridge has had. But within this vehicle, there's also the ability to have an 1.75 pre-connected hand line, which is the hand lines that we use for firefighters. So this forestry can double. If we have an engine out of service, this has the ability to lighter scale. Let us use it as an engine.
I don't have any questions. Do you guys?
I do. Chief, how is your building maintenance? How's your building maintenance budget?
So,
Are there any problems with the building?
changes.
That's not fair to change, so.
We're not you, Mr. Chair.
No, God,
Okay.
I'm only teasing him.
Okay.
So, yeah, the building, I mean, it's an older building, we bought, most of you know, it was bought from an exiting. Renovated. We've had a lot of roof leaks in the time I've been there. I think there's been 2 insurance claims, essentially the first year. When I came in, there was one claim that was just being fixed. And then we had to put it. I did find a good roof maintenance company, at least they've been good so far, that I said, what's going on? Why do, it's your roof, it's a metal roof with screws holding it down. So those screws are going to work loose. We found some holes and the screws and worked out. So now that I know that, I've set them up for hopefully the next month or 2. I contacted them a month or 2 ago when they could fit it in the schedule to come out just to a PM once over on that to avoid those leaks. We've gone to an annual preventive maintenance on the overhead garage doors as well. Try and keep those from failing the worst time to get out. And we take care of the other maintenance items as we go. We replace the apparatus for the apparatus garage heaters with oil release and have it pump up and out. Just taking issues with that. They've had something to do too with the fuel or the heating oil that we were getting at the time, getting too much fire. But we replace those with propane, so the garage is now heated by propane. The office is still off of that oil system. So we've been taking care of things.
Do you think we can get a tour of the building?
Absolutely. One of the candidates for the board of selectmen asked to talk to me. I gave him a tour of it. I'm more than happy to show any resident building and the equipment.
Because I went down to get a burning permit at the beginning of the season, and I noticed that you can no lobby anymore.
Well, okay.
And I understand probably due to last 2 years of COVID.
Yeah, well, it was kind of a combination of items. So you used to be able to walk in that front door and there was no defined public space or private or fire station space. So in theory, the entire building was a public space item that public could come in. A few years ago, there were people who were First Amendment people, I think, that would come and try to get in public spaces and film people. So that elevated my concern a little bit about security. How could we stop without infringing on somebody's rights to public space to prevent them from going through the building? But then when COVID hit, and now we have wide open space, and again, we didn't know what was going on, so between the 2 of those, we used money to put up a wall with an opening to the ceiling, so we didn't have to get into a lot of engineering, airflow, and heating, fire alarm. But that provided security, as well as we were able to turn that side office into put a window with a hole in the pass-through, so that we have a little bit more secure about it.
I'm interested to see the condition of the building, because I was on the building committee for that.
Yeah.
Purchased that and rebuilt it. I'd like to see how it's been holding up. It's been last 7, 8 years.
No, I think that was done like 2008. So I think we're at 12 or 13 years now.
So yeah, so
Everybody, I think I looked at the building part and I think, yeah, the update shows 2008.
maybe sometime after the town meeting.
Yeah, I thought,
We could,
so I had the spring
if
lights.
anybody else is interested in taking a look at it,
Been a while since I've been there,
because again, buildings are expensive. And
It's
it's
such a great
great
building.
that we're thinking about equipment and ambulance and what. As you can see, you can't let the buildings go.
Right, and
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't like the area of that building. And I think there's things that we can improve upon in the building that we didn't know years ago. Now, when they put up new buildings, they're putting I'll call it an airspace or a buffer space between the apparatus bay and the office and residential to try and keep the emissions from diesel, even though we do have noodles and all that, and keep, and our gear from floating in and exposure. Cancer rates are very high in firefighters, so we do a lot of stuff. So it'd be nice to be able to do something. Our training room, I don't know what it was when you did the project, but as you come in and you go out for the training. That was our training. It really doesn't hold much more than 12, 15 people, and especially now with COVID and distancing that we all try to do, we actually don't use it anymore. We take the ambulance out and we set up chairs. So I think the building, the station is probably pretty fully utilized right now. I don't want to scare anybody and say we need a new fire station right now, but I think I told you guys and the select board. I think it's just something that maybe should be kept in mind out 5, 10, 15 years, whatever's happening to the property up there. If whatever deal is done, that's something we worked out to try and get it. And the location of the building, I think it's pretty close to the geographical center. But it's away from the spokes that go out. For example, I'd love to have a road from Morrison Drive right over to Blackstone Street through those woods. Because I gotta drive all the way up here and go all the way back there. So to go probably a quarter to a half a mile, you gotta drive 3 or 4 miles, take 4 or 5 minutes to more to do, as opposed to being here where you could just get to all different. There's some opportunities. I'm not going to be around. My retirement is less than 5 years, so, but just something that I think we talked about.
Well, again, part of our job on the finance committee is to try to do what's best monetarily wise for the town. And if we don't start thinking about the future needs.
Sure.
We're
There's a pun intended. It feels like we are firefighters financially, right? So,
That's a good.
And it's not just here. I mean, we had the conversation in the capital committee. It's the same over in Oxford as well. The capital committee, it really took a long, it was many years that they did the same thing. We don't have any money. Why are we discussing this? We're going to recommend 1 truck for the DPW because that's all we have this year. Oxford is now pretty flush in cash due to the warehouses and cannabis businesses. So they're a little bit more active.
Again, times are changing. That fire station, to be quite honest, when the town decided to build that, we went round and round for many years. That was the fire station.
Yeah, I remember.
So doing that down on Morrison Drive was 200% better.
Yeah, well, and I'm told that the town said no to a joint public safety building up there, so you gotta go from plan A to plan B.
Right, you gotta keep trying it's, things change all the time, attitudes change, priorities change.
Yeah.
But if we just keep it on the table, and so that everybody doesn't forget.
Right.
That's why I asked about the maintenance of the building.
Yeah. Now, we're doing what we can, we're keeping it functioning, but yeah, this is my vacation season. So I'm here like 3rd, 4th week of May, and it's towards the end of June. I don't, we fit it into that.
So we can do it after.
Maybe
But sometime along, I think it would behoove the committee to take a
Reach out, sure, when you get back, reach out to us or vice versa, we'll send you guys. Or get a trip down there.
Yeah, just keep in mind if you have one that post it, otherwise I don't mind doing multiple. So whether you want to post it as a meeting,
We'll post it, we'll go together. I'll open a meeting right there.
We need your conference room if you're not using it. Use that.
Take it on tour, a little video cam. We'll get Lonnie from around.
Oh, good.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Begin there's no real capital planning committee. We just gotta keep
Keep our eye on
it
the
alive.
prize.
I mean, long-term financial planning, I think needs to be conversation for both the finance committee and the select board.
Yeah. That conversation about capital. Cap that. That's gotta get. We have a good year, we should be able to dump a bunch of money to change this.
Well, the master plan committees, you know, is working, and, you know, I know when the fire station, like, I know there's a lot of discussion, having more senate. It's like everything else, it's a cost thing.
Did the best we could with what we had.
I mean, I've run very reasonable costs too. It wasn't crazy. No, there's no $9 million fire.
Well, again, putting a joint building up there at the time. Going back to 2008, 7, you know. Some of you guys are as old as I am that know that it goes up, economy goes like this.
2009, you could have done
It was a tough time.
Yeah, it wasn't a great time to be,
Spending $8, $9 million on building. But as we see, times are changing. You know, the schools, dealing with the schools, making sure they have plenty of money.
the dominance.
Absolutely.
Where the new growth is coming from, understanding better where that money is going to be coming.
and I think understanding, because I know, you know, the fire department has years, the chief has upgraded a lot.
He's something, that's a lot.
But I, you know, I did want to understand what's next, because we don't have a really understanding. Is there gonna be, you know, another request next year?
No, he answered that question.
Yeah, which is-
He's on point too.
And when he first provided all the documentation for the first meeting, part of that, his last paragraph was about building its maintenance in probably the next 5, 10, 15 years at some. Something, yeah, so.
Yeah, I don't think that building was a forever location.
You know, like I said, instead of doing nothing, we did something.
It was a lot better.
Better than that. We needed to do something.
Yes.
All right, so next order of business to talk about what we have here in front of us. Which to get confirmed is correct. I've never been put in this kind of position, so I don't know the answer. So
It was,
you know, makes sense to just go through them tomorrow if it's easy.
oh yeah. As we go through, we make our official votes, sure.
And just do it then. I don't need to try them. I mean, you know, just roughly speaking out loud, just so there's no confusion tomorrow. Anybody have any questions about these that we want to discuss openly now? Never mind the money, whether it's right, wrong, or different. Is there anybody who's not necessarily the same page for any one of these particular articles? We want to discuss it further. Jumps out. at anybody. Brush truck was 170. Was there a variation in that number? I thought there wasn't from there.
It says 170 on our 10.
Did he send documentation to me?
And latest one I got, one said. You know, see if I'm shit.
Is it for final budget? It's like 34. It's not really.
Maybe just useful for Kim to just see articles like 11, 14. Yeah, I see like 350 stabilization, some recast, and exactly breakdown. And maybe she did that, and I missed it.
Yeah, that wasn't that breakdown budget sheet that she had, which pulled together all those like clean streets or some other streets and what is it? Complete streets, yeah. So those numbers were
On the,
This is for the town hall improvement, right?
right. That's like the list of where, it was like a community, it was like 5 or 6. I haven't found the document, I don't have it. Right.
Okay, I can look at it.
But yeah, it wasn't that.
And it breaks down the cost of all.
Nah, see, I haven't seen anything that shows a cost breakdown. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen other than like, she has, it was $50,000 to demo the police station, it's $30,000 for the fence budget, she had to finish the police station, $20,000 in paving. And I had just those memorized, but that's all I've seen for costs, $30,000 for fencing.
So I would just maybe, hopefully there's some detail.
Yeah.
I understand what it's spending stuff on. I know we transfer money for painting. So that's.
Well, we should have all the information when we get in front of the town meeting floor.
I'd like to know what it costs to paint the building.
There could be 50 people in that room, there could be 400 people. They might not ask questions, or they might ask every question. We should be, the idea is for us to be prepared to answer.
Yeah.
Right now, do you feel comfortable answering any questions on the budget? To 12 people?
No, I mean, that's more to do with the moving figures on the paper than to do with the meetings and conversations in the past.
All about being prepared.
For sure, and we want to. Sorry, so that was one good, like, I was definitely upset. I just thought I'd seen it at a meeting.
it's 170 in the.
Did he make reference of like want something? I made reference to maybe like 10 grand more for stuff on this. Two. It's probably.
See, you know.
Yeah, it wasn't an email, it was in that, like that link that we had, he put together with 4 or 5 different attachments.
Again, we're gonna go over this out. One, I don't know if you caught it or not. The CPA change. That committee hasn't voted on it yet. We're gonna vote on it first. I believe that's how it should work.
No, I mean, we should be, prior to, I guess my expectation was that for tonight, all of the numbers for the town warrant would be So,
That's a reasonable expectation. I would have thought.
So
I was surprised.
Go over it and be prepared for tomorrow. Again, tomorrow night. 2 people could show up, or we could have 4 people. It's out of the cost. What do you say?
It's more than likely. that we're-
I put money on a certain number, but.
Get back on, man. So it's about me.
What's the number of the over under? Of single digits.
No, but seriously though, does anybody else have any questions or thoughts on any of these? I just want to make sure we kind of,
What time's the meeting start?
it's tomorrow we're starting at 7 o'clock.
Mr. Chair, this is Jack. On the discussion on the capital planning committee, perhaps if I could be so bold as to ask Mike Amendolia, given his long tenure in the finance committee, it's my understanding that the capital planning committee is actually a part of the town bylaw. So what I am frankly not understanding is if the bylaw requires us to have a capital planning committee, and there's like, it's defunct or it's not being.
They seem to have a problem, getting members to serve on.
I think it's threefold. I think they're, to Jack, I think from what I've heard from Kim, this is just repeating what I've heard, it's to the point of, one, they're having trouble getting members. 2, the CapEx account has that limit of only being able to put $150,000 a year in it a year. And long-standing in that account hasn't been much more than $400,000 or $500,000 ever. So there isn't a whole lot of capital management to be being done, that, once every year or two, they go into what the little well is there, take it and move on. So I think that's kind of a threefold thing.
And it goes back to, again, it all ties in long-range planning. You know what I mean? There's a lot of problems. What I think we should probably do away with that.
Yeah, I think that's something that the finance committee can hold.
As Jack pointed out, we're in violation, the town's in violation of the bylaw. Now, if you go through the bylaws, that's a $50 fine.
Well, I'm not, to be clear, I'm not suggesting we're necessarily in violation of the bylaw. What I am saying is that it looks like the composition of a capital planning committee is part of the bylaw. And if we're having challenges getting people to serve, then we got to do one of two things. Either we have to change the bylaw, or we have to change the number of people that are serving on the committee, so that we're, in the first instance, eliminating the capital planning committee and doing it by the book, or we're going to change the composition so that we have less members on it and less people, representing the capital planning committee. I think. Because the current sort of formulation, I just don't think is reasonable. I mean, in the sense that I get it in the sense that there may not be available funds in a particular calendar year, but now the challenge becomes when we're asked for our opinion on an expenditure of X amount. We don't have the benefit of now any long range plan on how this fits in, including but not limited to now a senior center that is on the horizon, and how this fits into the long range plan that you just mentioned, Mike Mandalia, right? So this has got to be solved. I don't think this can be punted. This has to be solved by the Board of Selectmen.
Well, with a little luck, there's going to be a 5-member board, maybe more members on it, maybe done. action taken.
Well, there will be 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it will be five, that's, you know,
Right.
2 extra members. to do a
Well,
lot.
the government's changing.
Yeah, so I do think that that is an action item for the select board in conjunction with the finance committee of, one, planning a long-range financial plan that meets the goals of the master plan, right? As well as, assuming we have long-range plans in place, then the capital committee to manage part of those long-range plans. Now, we could suggest to dissolve the committee and have that be part of the role, or dissolve the bylaw and have it be part of the role of the finance committee. We could still want it to exist. Interesting conversation for the new select board. once elected.
Yeah, if I could offer this, I mean, the duties of the town officers, it says there shall be a capital planning committee. That doesn't say there should be, it says there shall be, consisting of 5 members appointed by the board, select board for 3-year overlapping terms, such that the term of the office of at least 1 member, but no more than 2 expire each year. So if I'm reading from the correct version of the latest version of the bylaw, that, and this is revised on February 10th, 2022, then shall, I think, means shall. So is there not one?
If we want to get technical, I do believe that I believe Norm was one of them. I do believe that there are people technically appointed to the capital planning committee. Now,
It's defunct in the sense it just doesn't.
If that
right,
is so,
so technically.
if that is so, what's the recommendation?
Yeah, it's one at a time. Yeah, go ahead.
If that's so, then what is the recommendation, as I asked the other night, of the capital planning committee on the expenditure of the monies for the fire apparatus, which, by the way, I support, but this is unacceptable.
It's a great question to ask at tomorrow's meeting. To see if there's any feedback on capital planning. Board of Selectmen. Yeah, so I think it's a great question to ask about.
Right.
Board of Selectmen doesn't mandate this committee has to meet.
So there's obviously a gap in how the capital planning committee is existing and operating, of which this committee has no authority over driving that. Correct? So there's nothing we can solve here except all agree that, yep, there is an issue. So,
Or to assume that it's operating perfectly outside of opera.
right,
Maybe they'll be present at the meeting as well.
exactly. So that's a great point, and seeing that that is a capital expenditure, and it sounds like it's probably what percentage of our capital?
I bet if I had to guess. Numbers that I remember, I think that's 30% of it.
Right.
It's a lot of it. I don't know what the number was exactly off the top of my head. I think
How much money do we have in
no less than 300 or more than 500. It's not a lot of money.
Yeah, that's around where.
Right, yeah, I mean, we don't have $900,000. That's not the thing. That's not the case.
Yeah.
And we don't have 100%.
Yeah, so this is a significant portion of it. Now, one, I have personal opinions on the necessity of it and whether I would vote to recommend to do it or not. The capital planning committee it would be great to have their input on it if there was a long-range plan that they were moving to, right? As of right now, is there enough money in the budget? Yay or nay? Because there is no actual long-range plan to say whether that's going to take up things earmarked for other things. Right? Because there is no long-range plan, there is nothing you could say, well, no, we shouldn't do that because it's earmarked for some other long-range purchase that we're going to save up, right? So as of right now, my opinion is that any question would be yay or nay, there's enough in the account, or no, there's not enough. So.
Out of curiosity, would your opinion be rather that there was a separate capital expenditure? Encompassed into the finance responsibilities. I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are while we're going this in depth into it.
I would almost prefer it to be separate just because it's more stuff we have to. Like, I'm not gonna go selfish reasons, and not only that. If there's not a lot of projects that fall under this, which I'm assuming they may be able to devote more time to it than we would, since we have hands in so much more. That's just not.
Yeah, I'd be okay with an approach of it not being the sole responsibility of FinCom, but there being a FinCom representative at the meeting.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because again,
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if there's a current committee, I think the challenge is this, is that if there's a current committee, and it sounds like there's at least some folks who are currently on the capital planning committee, then it seems to me that really the question appropriately is back to the Board of Selectmen on like what they want to do. This sounds like it's appointed by the board. So if those members, presumably, the board would have the discretion to, for example, appoint perhaps a subcommittee of the finance committee, designate a subcommittee of the finance committee to serve. They would have the authority to do that, presumably. And if they do that, then now comes the question of like, how about the folks who are currently on that committee, right? So the short answer is I don't know, but we should know. I'm frankly troubled by the fact that we don't have sort of like a long range plan, albeit I get that there may not be available funds in any particular year to designate, but what is sort of the order of priority in terms of capital expenditures for the community? The fire chief was just speaking to an 8-year or 20, I think he mentioned 24-year rotation for apparatus. That has to be sort of on a schedule, because like we're going to know, right, when the next vehicle is up that needs to be replaced. So those are like known future expenditures for capital, right? So it seems to me that's we got to have that.
So, yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. We need a long-range plan. It's not the finance committee's job to come up with a long-range financial plan, but I'm assuming it's a joint effort between multiple committees within the town, right? Which would also meet the needs as drawn out by the master plan. And there needs to be probably something driven through the select board in order to have a long-range plan drawn up for the town, of which the financial analysis of that is the responsibility of the financial committee. There's a gap that needs to exist. We should work with the select board to make sure that it exists. I want to solve that here alone.
No.
Right. So
To our point, we can ask the question tomorrow, what does capital expenditure?
anything. So as of right now, the capital planning committee per the website is Norm.
Right.
His term expires the end of June next year, and there are 2 vacancies. So per the town website, that is the capital planning.
And isn't there a citizen's petition right now? Excuse me. Have people be able to. Something to that effect.
I'm not, I thought I heard something like that.
I did hear something like that, but
Say that again.
I think there's a citizen's petition.
Citizen's
Limited number of boards.
I think I did.
So,
It's supposed to have 5 members.
By the bylaw, is that what that is?
So,
Yeah, technically it only says 2 vacancies, but. So in any case, right, that's something that the select board needs to obviously address.
Action item.
So that committee, I mean, just to talk about it a little bit more, not to beat it to death, but you take the CPA, for instance. there's a member from the Conservation Commission, from Planning Board, from the Affordable Housing. You know what I mean? That sit on that CPA that decides where that money goes on, deals with that.
There's
So capital planning committee should kind of
be a group.
be a group.
Absolutely.
Again, a rep from the finance committee, a rep from the planning board, a rep from the police, fire.
Yeah, all of the major departments have a vested interest to make sure that their long-range plans are taken care of and approved by this committee.
So at
So,
least represented.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like the last meetings last year. Were now Ryan, Chris Burke, Jay Meyer. That last.
So that's kind of one way, I guess.
Speaking of Norm, have you heard from him?
I have not. I did not. Didn't see anything on text. I don't know. You don't have any information on it?
I don't.
Yeah. I don't have it. So, is there anything else, any other business that we should discuss at this meeting here tonight?
Oh, just, all right. Motions to see what.
Shake out.
And to be clear, however long tomorrow needs to take is how long it needs to take. We ask as many questions as we want, right? I don't care how long the select board meeting takes
Would you bring sandwiches?
at all. I might bring food, drink. I'm starving. I came straight from work. Right? And that would be the same tomorrow.
But tomorrow is the select board meeting and we're having our meeting during that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're having our hearing during that meeting so that they're all present.
I believe if we want to get technical, like we scheduled it.
We did schedule.
Well, did you want to reschedule that first?
Oh,
Or doesn't matter?
no, because I just to discuss it. Because there's nothing in it, right, that I'm discussing. We can't, I haven't, it's so basically, we've written a letter. Select,
And the finance committee handbook is passed out.
Yeah.
There's usually a little letter from finance. Committee. Mike was asked for. So we would put a little letter together. Should at least run it by.
yeah, no, I just was more so just saying.
It's for the book? Yeah. For the FinCom, not the big tech book.
Okay, so. Yeah. So basically, our, the book is gonna say, to the citizens amendment. The Amendment Finance Committee recommends the enclosed balanced budget for the fiscal year Y 23. The select board this year initiated a new approach to formulating the formulating and balancing the FY 23 budget. They met along with the financial team, the existing finance committee, and the town department heads to review, approve full recommendation to the town, each department's budget. The result is presented in this book. Very
Short and sweet.
short and sweet. To the point. Very, just matter of fact.
But it's the facts, right?
And
They come up with a new way to do it. So the people in the audience should know. You know? Well, long. Story, you know.
yeah, no, so it's very blunt and very basic. Just covers the basis.
People remember.
Yeah.
So like I said, the town meeting's a pretty unpredictable. Like I say, there could be 50 people sitting there, or it could be 500.
Last year.
They could, they
It was pretty tricky. You got up, I was like, the new guy on the totem pole, I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? You got up, walked around and got up to the pole, I was like,
like the moderator said,
you were really supposed to.
I was pissed.
No, you were pissed, I mean,
Yeah, because, no, it wasn't being, our vote wasn't being represented. The vote that we had as a committee wasn't being represented at the time.
accurate.
It wasn't represented, yeah, it was just, I wanted to be accurate, that our finance committee did not recommend that our, and it was perceived, it was stated that we had. Yeah. But, you know, there was a lot of.
Sure. I guess we don't have to weigh in on the rooster controversy, it's a part of our.
as long as no money involved.
But cockfighting is profitable.
Money.
Find out there's nothing wrong with cockfighting.
Because whenever that was there, they started going over the decibels for the roosters, I was lost. We never talked details. Roosters and
I mean, as a guy who's in the audio industry, I
Absolutely.
never realized that, that it created 120 easy.
That's, I've now, I'll look at the Lord.
Absolutely.
That's a fact that shows.
We're not.
Okay, Jack, do you have any other business that you would like to discuss?
All set, thank you.
You guys said that.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Take it easy, Jack.
Thank you, Jack. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Is it tomorrow at
Seven.
7?
7 o'clock.
So we should be here at 7.
Yeah, I'll be here early, because I'm gonna watch, see what's going on, but yeah, you guys don't have to wait till 7. Good. We'll open the meeting, start reading